Good morning. Today's message is everybody goes home. Now that has to do with Papa Steve's philosophy on how to approach doing dangerous or risky activities. Whenever you do those type of activities, you should have some level of risk that you're willing to accept and then not go beyond. Over time, mine became everybody goes home. And by that I mean that there should be more of a focus on preparation, planning, protecting yourself, and making sure you have the flexibility of mindset to change plans should conditions change or other things change, which would increase or change that risk. Hence, we protect as many people as possible so we have a good time and everybody goes home. Now, one of the reasons I'm making these videos is so that you guys can learn some more about your Papa Steve. I thought that was important for you to understand. So, for a 12-year period of my life, when your mom was little, we lived mostly in Washington State. During that time, I did take a couple of years off to go to law school, but during that time I had an opportunity to spend a lot of time in the Cascade Range, doing things that I love to do. Hiking, climbing, mountaineering. Mountaineering is mountain climbing. And I was able to spend hundreds of hours in the outdoors. So, why is Papa Steve dressed like a mountain climber? What's going on? Well, everybody comes home developed from these experiences I had mountain climbing. I wanted to make sure that I and everyone I was with was as safe as possible. So that became my philosophy. So whether you're doing whatever risky activity you're doing, whitewater rafting, skydiving, mountaineering, you want to be able to accept some level of risk that's acceptable to you. Might not be the same as everyone else. Other people might have different level of risk. They might not have as many things that concern them when they do an activity. That's okay. You come up with your own level, the level you're comfortable with, then don't exceed that. If you do that, you can have great time doing activities, even though they're risky, potentially dangerous, and would be looked down upon by some people, perhaps your mom. But don't let that stop you. You can still go out and do those things as you get older. Probably not when your mom says no. That would be a bad time to do that. So let's take a look at a few things here. Mountain climbing. Now in mountain climbing, you need a lot of equipment. You can see Papa Steve has some on here. You need rope. Why is a rope? Why rope? Well, rope helps protect you. What else protects you? Well, a helmet. And then we have to carry a lot of gear with us, like these carabiners. We have to be able to have, especially going on glaciers, some way to get out of a crevasse if we fall in. So these are called ascenders. We have to have some kind of belay device, like a figure eight. You're going to need some type of safety harness to wear. Of course, a good pair of boots is super valuable, almost irreplaceable. Also for glacier travel, you're going to need an ice axe, something to protect from falls and to use as an anchor if needed. Very important tool. It saved me more than once. Some kind of shovel, avalanche shovel, or to dig a place for your tent. You're going to need that in the snow. Some type of anchoring system, perhaps an avalanche probe. Of course, like these warm gloves, you're going to need lots of clothing, lots of warm gear. Now, all this stuff you have to carry with you has to be readily accessible should you come into a situation where you need help. Almost every activity requires some type of equipment like that, protective equipment. So just be prepared to spend the money for that, to do what you need to do in order to enjoy yourself and be safe at the same time. I wanted to go through some photos from back when Papa Steve was doing a lot of mountain climbing. Now, Washington State has 5 major volcanoes, 5 active volcanoes, from north to south: Mount Baker, Glacier Peak, Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, which you might have heard of, and Mount Adams. Now, Papa Steve was lucky enough to spend a lot of time on all of those mountains. Several of them I spent more than a lot of time. In fact, I was able to climb them multiple times and enjoy different routes and different days. This first photo shows Papa Steve leading a group of friends up Mount Baker. In that group is your mom's Uncle Keith, and actually her Uncle Craig is taking the photo. The next photo shows Papa Steve descending from Mount Rainier on a different time. And then there was one year where the weather was so good for the summer that for 3 consecutive weeks, 3 weeks in a row, I summited first Mount St. Helens, and that's the photo shown here. Then the next week, I summited Mount Adams, which is way down south in Washington. It's a very fun peak to climb. Then the following week, I summited Mount Rainier. So in three weeks, I was able to be up on all 3 mountains. Now, I summited Mount Rainier with my friend Stephen West because it's a little more technical mountain. Always better to go with someone else so that you have more protection against falls and things that might happen. The next photo shows Papa Steve, again, hiking, climbing Mount Adams. This time was with your Uncle Keith, who's shown here on the summit with me. And then Uncle Keith is taking a picture of me stuffing my face. Always good to eat a lot when you're climbing. Then this last photo is something that, it was one of the funnest climbs that I ever went on. Those 2 boys there are Nolan Redding and Matt Redding. They were 2 boys in our ward who Nolan had just gotten back from his mission and Matt was preparing to go on a mission. So they wanted to climb Mount Baker. We did some training together. We got ready for the climb and then we went and did it. We went pretty late in the year, so we had to do some creative route finding in order to get to the summit, but it was a blast. Well, hopefully you can see that Papa Steve did some things that were enjoyable, and even though risky, we're able to mitigate that risk to protect myself and the other people I went with. Well, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it. This is Papa Steve's Workshop, and I'm Papa Steve.